Okay, everybody, so right now I am exactly where we left off with my really kind of sloppy character. At this point, I am going to go ahead and actually unwrap this character. So I'm going to unwrap it, and then I'm going to add some color to it and use this as a way to be able to kind of start to build this character a little bit further out. So first off, I'm just going to apply my subdivision surface modifier. I would say, whoa, let me actually undo that and make this like 2. I don't need that many. Remember, I can do smooth shade mode, so that's great. I don't need more than that. That's already so much. Look at that. So, okay, so how am I going to unwrap this? Are you kidding me? This is pretty intense for unwrapping. Let's go ahead and see what we can do. First off, remember, if I go and I click a vertex, I can press Control click. Or sorry, if I go and I click an edge, I can press Control click. Sorry, Alt click, and it puts the entire loop around a particular point. And this is what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be finding the points that I want to unwrap, make them flat, and then I'm going to create a really loose facsimile of a UV edit. I'm actually going to go ahead and just see what the Smart UV Wrap undoes. I want a little bit of an island margin. Let's go to UV editing. Okay, this isn't that bad. This is actually pretty good. So always go ahead, try out, see what you can do in terms of Smart UV unwrapping. This would be a little bit more challenging to bring into like Illustrator or Photoshop. I would probably just want to like unwrap it myself and make it bigger things. And it's really not as challenging to unwrap as you think. But now that I have this unwrapped, I can actually go into texture paint or shading, and I can say, hey, I want to, well, first let me go into UV editing. I'm going to create a new image, I'm going to name this person image. This is person, and I'm going to say 2000 because I do want to have like a level of detail here. I'm going to say 2000. I'm going to make this white. Great. New image. And if I press A, you'll see that on person, I have the UV layout. So I can go to texture paint and I can just say, okay, great. That's all set up. Let me go to shading. I'm going to go to texture. I'm going to go to image texture. I'm going to bring this in. And now I'm going to start drawing on person. Remember, I have to attach person image to this. And then I can go ahead and I can start drawing on this. I'm going to shade smooth, and I'm going to go into texture painting. 2 things that I'm going to do here. First off, I'm going to make sure that in this butterfly option, I have Y mirrored. I'm going to go ahead. Oh, and look at that. I can actually start to color this character. Now this is pretty cartoony to start off with, and I'll go into kind of like another technique that you can kind of use in the future, but you can definitely get really far with this. The point is that like I'm using broad strokes, and I'm kind of using a fall off that is pretty shallow right here, but I can always go ahead and be like constant, and whoa, okay, so I'm getting like more into the pixel by pixel level. If I go into and I make this like black and I make this radius really tiny, I can create very specific details. Maybe I don't want exactly constant. I'm going to say fall off, like root. And this also comes down to like how much resolution you have on this image. But even just this, look, I'm being able to create something that's like pretty interesting. Oh, there's my character. There's part of my character's face. I'm starting to get somewhere. In fact, if I go over here, it's looking pretty interesting. In fact, if I go ahead into, remember, I can go ahead up here, and not only can I adjust the not only can I adjust this image, but if I go to like material or I go to like plus, I can go to like roughness and I can add this here, and I can actually just mess with the roughness map. So you'll see I'm starting to mess with like the roughness here, which in terms of light, I'm going to go to cycles, or I'm going to actually turn ray tracing on in Eevee. Has like a pretty interesting effect. Let's go into like metallicness. Maybe I go into the bump map. Ooh, there we go. It's starting to look pretty interesting. So let's go back. Another technique that people often use, and I'm going to go back right now. I'm going to actually UV unwrap this myself now. And I bet you're saying, no, Duncan, don't do it. Don't worry. It's going to be fine. It's going to be easy. It's going to be a lot easier than we think it's going to be. So first off, going over here, I'm selecting the points at which I want to create creases, because I'm going to show you a more kind of like interesting effect right here. I'm going to find a loop. Hey, that's a great loop. I'm going to press Control E, and I'm going to go mark seam. Remember, we want this to be flat, and so I actually want to make kind of a crease in the back that will act as the way that this opens up. I don't want it to go all the way through to the top, because I don't want to have a crease going down the face, the middle face of this character. I'm not in X-ray mode, so I'm just selecting things kind of on a larger sweep. I'd say that's fine. Okay, great. I'm going to say Control E. I'm going to mark that seam. Wonderful. I am going to do the same with this arm. I'm going to do the same with, let's see, let's hope we get the right arm on the right side. I believe this is mark seam. Yep. Perfect. I'm also going to mark seams around the hands. Great. And let's go ahead right here. I'm going to select this on the back. I don't want that whole thing, so I'm going to have to select this a little bit more piecemeal, but that's okay. Okay, that's great. I'm kind of unwrapping this in a way that'll make it look flat. Let's do the same with the back of the hands. In fact, nope, don't want that, don't want that, don't want that. I think that's pretty good. And for some of these, they don't have to be extremely perfect. The technique I'm about to show you is actually using color schemes to be able to kind of mark out where I want or certain colors to be on my characters. Great, okay, those are looking good. I have my torso, I'm gonna deal with that in a second. Let's go down to these legs. I want to choose this. I'm going to Control E, mark seam. I want to do this. Sorry. Alt, selection, Control E, mark seam. And then I'm going to go to the back. I'm going to go ahead and do Alt, select, Control E, mark seam. Alt, select, Control E, mark seam. And now let's go ahead. Control E, mark seam. No, this is what? Yeah, it's right here. I'm going to go Control E. I'm going to mark seam. Great. Okay, this is looking pretty good. This will unwrap pretty easily. Wonderful. And then I'm going to do the same with the feet. All I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a nice crease down the center of the feet. So let's go ahead here. Select these. Oh. That's fine. I'm going to go Control E. I'm going to mark seam. And again, this is a very simple, dirty approach. There are going to be, oh, and I got this a little wrong. This is a very simple, dirty approach. There are going to be other ways that we're going to do this that are both going to make this easier and going to make this more complex. We're going to explore options and techniques of doing this that will automate this a little bit more. And we are also going to get more detail-oriented in our approach to creating UV maps. But right now, we are just going for it. And that's totally fine. Control E, mark seam. Wonderful. Okay. So we have this unwrapped. We have the feet unwrapped. We have the arms unwrapped. We have the hands unwrapped. We have the head unwrapped. Now we just need to unwrap the body. And fortunately, all we really need to do, well, let's think about this. If we unwrap this just in the back, we're going to have two big holes in this. However, if we unwrap this on either side, we are going to have, it's going to be a little bit easier for us. We're going to have two pieces, a front and a back, as opposed to so let's go ahead and do that. Oh, no, can't do it there. We have to connect it to the, so let's go ahead and okay, Control E, mark seam. Wonderful. Let's get a sense of where this is on the other side so I don't do the same thing I did before. So one that kind of, is it that one? Yeah, I think it's that one. It's that one. Is it that one? Yeah, it's that one. Oh, not that. Okay, Control A, mark seam. Okay, so at this point, we're about to unwrap this. I'm going to press A, I'm going to press U, and I'm going to press unwrap. And we might not have this set up in the way that we want it to be. So let's go ahead and take a look. Well, okay, we have some loops over here. Ah, I know why these are here. Does anybody else want to know why these are here? So we set a line between this and this, but we didn't set a line between this and this, this and this, and this and this. And so we ended up having holes that were still stuck inside of our UV. Also, I did an okay job of unwrapping some of these, but as you can see, some of these vertices are kind of like densely packed over here, which is definitely going to warp some things a little bit. So we should be aware of that. What I would have to do to fix that is to be able to create deeper creases into these topologies, or when I was creating these creases in order to do it. So let's go ahead and add those final creases. Yeah, Control E, mark seam. Mark seam, and now the front and the back will really be in two pieces, which is what we want, as opposed to having something that has a bunch of holes in it. Okay, let's do this again. Unwrap. Okay, that's looking better. That's looking better. Look, we have like a front part, we have a back part, we have each of the legs, we have two of the hands, and we have part of the head. I imagine this is part of the head. Yeah. So we're doing pretty good here. Let's go ahead. Great. First off, I'm gonna save this. I'm gonna save this. In a new folder, and I'm gonna say person. Yeah, it's a fun way to label that. I'm gonna put textures, and let's go ahead and save that there. I'm going to go to back. And I'm going to send this UV, export UV layout. I'm going to send that to textures. Just so that I have that for when I want it. And now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do something really fun, which is I am going to go and use a technique in which I block out a particular color scheme, and then I use this to be able to help me kind of create a character. What do I mean here? So I think I'm going to go here. I think it's like colorly. Color schemes. Oh, coolers. I'm going to accept all cookies right now. I don't want to do any of these pro stuff. Just sign in. Continue with Google. Don't. I know. Okay, so tools. Palette generator. This is where I want to go. Okay, so in this case, it just kind of generates random color palettes for me, and this is useful for generating ideas. I often go here when I'm kind of stuck. I'm just gonna look for a good one. Oh, I kind of like this. So I am going to export as a image. Person, colors. And I actually want this to be in RGB export. Okay, so let's go to here. I'm going to go to a new file explorer. I'm going to go to my desktop. I'm going to go to the folder that I have this person guy in. I'm going to make sure that person colors is inside of these textures. And then I'm going to go to shading. And instead of using that, I'm going to go into this folder and I'm going to go into textures and I'm going to go person colors. And at first I get this kind of like split up, weird kind of thing. But don't worry, because what I can now do is, like, say for instance I go to UV editing and I have the image and I open person colors. I can actually now drag these around wherever I want them to be. So first off, before I do this, let me go and save, because what I'm about to do is I'm about to edit some of my UVs. So I'm going to save this as person color scheme UV variant. Okay, great. Now let's go to my folder. Do I have both? I have both. Great. Okay. So I have everything selected. I'm in edit mode. And now I can actually kind of go in and decide where I want these to go. So I'm going to scale this down actually. I want the body to be purple. Yeah, body's going to be purple. Hands are going to be kind of like this green. I like the green. I think this is going to be almost going to have crash test dummy kind of vibes, which will be kind of funny. I'm just going to move this over here. The legs. I want the legs to be this purple. Oh, missed some of those. Let's grab those. Wonderful. Wonderful. Okay, and the arms. I'm going to make these arms this green. I kind of like this green. And then I'll save the yellow for the head and the feet. And I think, obviously, I can go in and change this however I want. Okay, feet. Okay, it's got everything. Good. And head. Let's put that. I'm going to make the feet smaller because I know I'm going to end up drawing on the head more than I draw on the feet. So I'm just going to make these smaller. Remember, this is the resolution of the image. Okay, so let's go and see what this looks like inside of this mode. Okay, so I've kind of created some interesting colors here. And it's kind of fun. I mixed up the arms and the legs. That's totally cool. Let's go ahead into shading. And let's actually go and connect some of these to different aspects. Maybe not IQR, maybe roughness. Okay, that's kind of interesting. So I'm getting like shinier things on different things. The IQR is a little... Okay, it's kind of like a robot guy. I don't want that. I don't want that. In fact, do I want roughness up? That's kind of nice. Ooh, let's go into subsurface. Okay, it's starting to look interesting. In fact, let's have the color affect the radius. Do I want that? There we go. That's kind of interesting. We have more of a cartoony look now that is also dependent on the different colors. Don't know if I want that. But go ahead. Mess around. See what's going on here. And the really neat thing about this now is I can actually go in and I can now use this to draw. So I can go to texture paint and I can draw directly on this image. So I'm gonna go red. I'm gonna make sure this is Y. And hey, look, I'm drawing on this color palette that I brought in. Let me make sure that my fall off is a little bit smoother. You know, I can kind of go in any direction I want. Maybe I want to tidy up like the creases here by going over them with some texture paint. I don't know. You can decide. There's also a ton of different ways to do this. Like, say, for instance, I wanted to change this image to have, like, a lot of other things on top of it. I could do that. Yeah, so play around, see what you enjoy doing. And, yeah, you can also remember you can create other aspects that are potentially going to be part of your character. Maybe I want to make this guy have, like, a comically large hat. Oh. And so there's tons of things that you can do after the fact to be able to add these onto your character. So this is just one technique. This is probably a little bit more intense than some of the other approaches that you're going to be used to. I will be sending everybody kind of like a base model that they can use to sculpt and add on to. I'll also send you some resources on adding clothing onto your characters and things of that sort. Yeah, and I will talk to everybody soon. Bye, guys.